She taught Bible stories to children by day and hid the body of an 8-year-old girl in her church kitchen by night. This isn't fiction. This is Harmony Creek's darkest truth. Harmony Creek, California. Even the name sounds peaceful, doesn't it? Nestled amongst orchards and farmland, yet close enough to the Bay Area buzz that folks felt connected but safe. The scent of blooming orchards often drifted on the breeze, mixing with the distant hum of tractors, the very definition of wholesome. It was the kind of town where neighbors waved from porches, kids rode bikes until dusk called them home, and unlocked doors weren't entirely a thing of the past. Safe. Predictable. Comfortably ordinary. At least, that's what everyone thought. Until March 2009 shattered that illusion into a million sharp, terrifying pieces. It started subtly, the way most nightmares do. A Tuesday afternoon bleeding into evening, the spring air still holding a chill. 8-year-old Lily Meadow, a spark of a girl with bright eyes and a laugh that could chase away any glow, didn't come home for dinner. Lily, known for her relentless cartwheels on the patchy lawn of the Meadowbrook Trailers community, her love for pop stars, her easy chatter that made friends out of strangers, just days after excitedly showing off a new cartoon-themed blanket, a birthday gift. She was sunshine personified. And then, she wasn't there. Just gone. Vanished from the familiar streets she knew so well, streets where parents felt comfortable letting their children play tag or hopscotch just beyond their doorstep. It didn't make sense. How could this happen here? Initial worry curdled quickly into a thick, cold dread that spread through Harmony Creek like a physical contagion. Where could she be? This wasn't like Lily. Not at all. It wasn't just unlikely, in Harmony Creek, it felt fundamentally impossible. Children didn't simply vanish. The disappearance itself was a shocking crime, a tear in the town's fabric. But what would eventually claw its way into the light was far more disturbing, almost unthinkable. It wasn't just the horrific fate awaiting Lily Meadow, it was the identity of the monster responsible. Someone close. Someone trusted. Someone who defied every expectation of evil, proving that the deepest darkness, the kind that steals childhood innocence, can wear the most unassuming disguise. This story isn't just about a missing child, it's about the horrifying reality that sometimes, the danger isn't lurking in the shadows outside, but smiling at you from right next door. The peace of Harmony Creek was shattered, leaving a community desperate for answers. The search for young Lily Meadow began, an operation that would grip the town and the nation, but initially yield only more questions. The peace of Harmony Creek was shattered, leaving a community desperate for answers. The search for young Lily Meadow began, an operation that would grip the town and the nation, but initially yield only more questions. And at the heart of that desperate search was the girl herself, 8-year-old Lily Renee Meadow. She wasn't just a name on a missing poster, she was the second grader at Harmony Creek Elementary with the infectious giggle, the one obsessed with Hannah Montana, the friendly face in the close-knit Meadowbrook Trailers community where she lived with her mother Maria, her grandparents, and 3 older siblings. Meadowbrook was supposed to be safe, a haven where kids played freely between the rows of homes, watched over by familiar eyes. Lily, with her sun-streaked light brown hair and boundless energy, embodied that carefree spirit. She made friends everywhere, always ready with a helping hand or a story. That Friday, March 27th, started like any other. School let out, Lily visited a friend, briefly checked back home around 4 p.m. as usual, then dashed out again, calling back she was off to play at another friend's house nearby. Nothing unusual. Kids bounced between homes constantly, sharing toys, secrets, and snacks. But as the afternoon shadows lengthened into the murky twilight of evening, a knot of worry tightened in Maria's stomach. Dinner time came and went. No Lily. This was wrong. Lily knew the rules, she always checked in. Frantic calls to neighbors confirmed the friend Lily mentioned visiting hadn't even been home. Panic flared. Lily knew better than to leave the familiar confines of Meadowbrook. She never had before. Where was she? At 7:53 p.m., the dam of parental fear broke. Maria made the call no parent ever wants to make, 911. The official missing person report sent to Harmony Creek Police into immediate action. Officers started at the Meadow family home, their search grid rapidly expanding outward through the trailer park, flashlights cutting uselessly through the unnerving darkness. A nearby security camera offered a flicker of chilling hope, or perhaps dread. Footage captured Lily casually crossing the street in front of her house earlier that afternoon. Just walking. The brief clip, broadcast on news channels reaching far beyond Harmony Creek, became a haunting symbol of the mystery. But it offered no clues. The initial search quickly ballooned. As hours bled into agonizing days with no sign of Lily, the FBI joined the Harmony Creek Police, bringing federal resources to bear on the baffling case. The weekend saw an escalation. K-9 units sniffed frantically, their leads evaporating into dead ends. Specialized rescue teams rappelled into ditches, all-terrain vehicles churned through nearby fields. A California Highway Patrol helicopter beat the air overhead, its searchlight scanning the landscape below. Over 250 people from 13 different organizations poured into the area, a small army desperate for a breakthrough. Divers submerged themselves in the murky, cold water of a local lake, finding nothing. Officers went door to door through Meadowbrook trailers and surrounding neighborhoods, interviewing everyone, checking vehicles, searching sheds. Still nothing. The community fear was palpable now. Doors were double-locked, children kept indoors. Authorities put up a $22,000 reward, hoping to shake loose some information. Any information. But there was only silence. An unnerving, terrifying silence where Lily Meadow's laughter should have been. Days turned into a week, and hope dwindled with each passing hour. The extensive search yielded nothing, deepening the mystery and fear in Harmony Creek. Then, a routine task in a nearby reservoir led to a horrifying discovery that confirmed the town's worst fears. Days turned into a week, and hope dwindled with each passing hour. The extensive search yielded nothing, deepening the mystery and fear in Harmony Creek. Then, a routine task in a nearby reservoir led to a horrifying discovery that confirmed the town's worst fears. On April 6, farm workers draining an irrigation pond miles from Meadowbrook trailers felt their equipment snag on something heavy, submerged in the murky water. It was a black suitcase. A sickening dread filled the air even before it was opened. Inside, curled in a fetal position, was the tiny body of Lily Meadow. She wore the same pink shirt and jeans from the day she vanished, her small hand still clutching the soft, cartoon character blanket given to her just the week before for her 8th birthday. The unbearable confirmation of Lily's fate struck Harmony Creek with the force of a physical blow. The fragile hope that had sustained the community through 10 days of desperate searching evaporated, replaced by waves of shock, profound grief, and a chilling terror. Who could do this? Who could commit such an unthinkable act against an innocent child? Near the entrance to Meadowbrook trailers, a makeshift memorial bloomed almost overnight, a sea of flowers, flickering candles, handwritten notes expressing sorrow and outrage, and rows of teddy bears and stuffed animals, silent tributes to the little girl whose laughter would never echo there again. The community grief was immense, a shared wound that cut deep into the town's sense of security. Now, the missing person case was officially a homicide investigation, and the pressure to find the killer intensified. Investigators initially turned their attention to familiar, if unsettling, figures. There was Frank Heller, a man in his 60s living nearby. 2 years prior, Lily's grandmother had witnessed an incident at the community pool, Heller kissing the then 6-year-old Lily on the lips while brushing her hair from her face. The family had reported it then, and now, in the horrific context of her murder, that memory resurfaced with sinister implications. When questioned, Heller vehemently denied any involvement, dismissing the kiss as a harmless, kind gesture. Police confiscated electronics from his home but found nothing concrete. They also looked briefly at Lily's biological father, Daniel Meadow, but he resided in Mexico, had minimal contact with his daughter, hadn't seen her in over a year, and was quickly cleared. The FBI profilers, drawing on statistical patterns, sketched a preliminary portrait of the likely perpetrator, a white male, aged between 25 and 40, probably with a prior criminal history involving sexual assault or child exploitation. someone who kidnapped for sexual gratification and killed to silence the victim. This profile steered the investigation towards the men residing in or frequenting the Meadowbrook Trailers area. But the cold, hard facts emerging from the autopsy painted a far more brutal and complex picture than the profile suggested. The coroner's report was devastating. Lily had been beaten. She had been sexually assaulted with a foreign object. And ultimately, she had been suffocated. Perhaps most chillingly, toxicology reports revealed the presence of a powerful sedative, alprazolam, often prescribed under brand names like Xanax, or known on the streets sometimes by names like Somnox, in her system. She had been drugged before the final, fatal assault. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, it was calculated. It was monstrous. It confirmed this was a brutal, premeditated homicide. The autopsy provided horrifying answers about how Lily died, shattering any lingering hope of a less terrible scenario. Yet, the crucial question of who remained agonizingly unanswered, and the initial profile based on statistics seemed increasingly insufficient to explain the calculated cruelty inflicted upon her. While suspicion fell on men in the community, the key to unlocking the case lay hidden in plain sight, with someone neighbors saw every day, linked to the very suitcase that held Lily's tragic secret. The autopsy provided horrifying answers about how Lily died, shattering any lingering hope of a less terrible scenario. Yet, the crucial question of who remained agonizingly unanswered, and the initial profile based on statistics seemed increasingly insufficient to explain the calculated cruelty inflicted upon her. While suspicion fell on men in the community, the key to unlocking the case lay hidden in plain sight, with someone neighbors saw every day, linked to the very suitcase that held Lily's tragic secret. Its owner, Eleanor Vance. Living just 5 doors down from Lily Meadow's family in the Meadowbrook Trailers community, 28-year-old Eleanor Vance seemed, on the surface, an unlikely figure to attract police attention in a homicide investigation. She was a mother herself, raising her young daughter, Madison. She volunteered teaching children at the Harmony Creek Baptist Church, where her own grandfather, Pastor Lane Laws, preached from the pulpit. To many in the tight-knit community, Eleanor projected an image of quiet piety and maternal devotion, blended with a certain fragility. But beneath that carefully maintained facade churned a lifetime of instability and turmoil few truly understood. Born in Southern California, Eleanor bounced between Orange County and the Harmony Creek area after high school, struggling to find and keep steady employment. Financial woes plagued her. Court records showed she filed for bankruptcy in 2003, drowning in over $26,000 of debt from medical bills and credit cards, even while 5 months pregnant. Her marriage that same year to Johnny Vance was short-lived and explosive. They separated just a year later, the divorce finalized in 2005 amid bitter accusations. Eleanor claimed Johnny had kidnapped their daughter and committed domestic violence, charges he denied, but she was ultimately awarded full custody of Madison. The strain of single parenthood compounded deeper, persistent struggles. Eleanor lived a largely solitary life, wrestling with severe mental health issues. Diagnoses included borderline personality disorder, BPD, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia, a trifecta suggesting a chaotic internal world marked by unstable moods, impulsive behavior, difficulty managing anger, and potentially fractured perceptions of reality. Family members spoke of her battles with crippling depression and a disturbing history of self-harm, specifically injuring her ankles, seemingly as a maladaptive way to cope with her psychological pain. She was prescribed a cocktail of powerful medications, benzodiazepines like alprazolam, the same drug found in Lily's system, sometimes known as Somnox, amphetamines, antidepressants, and even furosemide, a diuretic typically used for heart problems. Adding another layer to her complex profile was an unsettling fascination with the darker side of life. She was an avid watcher of crime television dramas, particularly Law and Order, and had even briefly studied criminology at a community college. Was it simple curiosity, or something more obsessive? This interest seemed disturbingly incongruous with her church activities. And then there were the specific incidents, red flags snapping sharply in hindsight. In 2007, she was considered a person of interest in 2 suspicious fires back in La Palma, though never formally charged. In June 2008, she moved north to Harmony Creek, ostensibly to help her aging grandparents, Pastor Lane and his wife Connie, pack for a move. Instead, she ended up moving into their trailer with Madison, placing her squarely in the same small community as Lily Meadow. Barely settled, another disturbing event occurred in January 2009. A 7-year-old girl from the neighborhood vanished for hours. Eleanor Vance eventually reappeared with the child, but the girl was frighteningly disoriented, barely able to speak or stand. Hospital tests found benzodiazepines, Somnox, perhaps, in her system. Though the parents feared sexual assault, none was proven. Eleanor reacted with outrage when questioned by police, vehemently denying everything. Complicating matters, the girl's mother had her own issues, and the case was eventually dropped for lack of evidence. Just weeks before Lily's death, in March 2009, another man, Daniel Portman, whom Eleanor was dating and had apparently told she was pregnant, experienced a terrifying incident. After accepting a drink from Eleanor at church, he blacked out, later waking up in jail with no memory after being found unconscious near a fast food restaurant. He never pressed charges. Practice runs? Or just more chaos swirling around Eleanor? Eleanor Vance presented a facade of normalcy, even piety, to her Harmony Creek neighbors. But beneath the surface simmered a volatile mix of mental illness, desperation, and deeply disturbing behavior. As investigators struggled to identify Lily's killer, Eleanor's own actions in the days surrounding the little girl's disappearance began to draw unwelcome attention. Eleanor Vance presented a facade of normalcy, even piety, to her Harmony Creek neighbors. But beneath the surface simmered a volatile mix of mental illness, desperation, and deeply disturbing behavior. As investigators struggled to identify Lily's killer, Eleanor's own actions in the days surrounding the little girl's disappearance began to draw unwelcome attention. Actions that initially seemed merely odd, or perhaps desperate bids for attention, slowly started to look sinister as the investigation ground on. Even while the frantic search for Lily was underway, Eleanor seemed determined to insert herself into the narrative. She sent a text message to Lily's distraught mother, Maria, suggesting police should know about an alleged, unrelated burglary attempt at her own trailer around 4 p.m. on the day Lily vanished, adding oddly that she wasn't sure if it would help. Then came the calls. She contacted the manager of Meadowbrook Trailers and even spoke to media outlets, reporting that a specific item had been stolen from her driveway, a black suitcase. This was before Lily's body was discovered inside just such a suitcase. Why mention it? Why draw attention? Her behavior at a community vigil held for Lily only heightened suspicions. Amidst the heartbroken neighbors praying for the little girl's safe return, Eleanor became highly agitated, crying dramatically. Then, she approached investigators, claiming she had just found a crumpled note lying on the ground nearby. The note itself was bizarre, scrawled with poor spelling, Lily locked in suitcase thrown into water at Willow Creek Road and Sycamore LN Witness. Investigators noted with rising suspicion how, after handing over this potentially crucial, or manipulative, clue, Eleanor's agitation seemed to evaporate, replaced by an unnerving calm. It felt performative, staged. Adding to the background noise was the fact Eleanor was currently on parole for a robbery committed down south a few years prior, not violent, but it meant she wasn't entirely unknown to law enforcement. Still, at this stage, many investigators considered her an attention seeker, perhaps unstable, but not necessarily the killer. That perception shifted dramatically as concrete evidence began to surface. A retired Marine and his wife came forward. They reported seeing Eleanor Vance and her distinctive truck parked near the irrigation pond on their property, the very pond where the suitcase would later be found, between 5:30 and 6 p.m. on March 27, the day Lily disappeared. They recognized her from news coverage and recalled she seemed flustered, distracted, and in a hurry. When asked later, Eleanor claimed she'd only stopped there briefly to use the bathroom. Then came the surveillance footage, piecing together a damning timeline. Security cameras near Lily's home captured the little girl at 3:54 p.m. walking cheerfully in the direction of Eleanor Vance's trailer. Just 8 minutes later, the same camera recorded Eleanor's truck driving away in the opposite direction. Later that evening, around 5:30 p.m., correlating with her calls about the stolen suitcase, another camera, this one near the Harmony Creek Baptist Church parking lot, recorded Eleanor's truck driving towards the irrigation pond. 30 minutes later, the camera caught her truck returning. The focus intensified on the church, the place associated with Eleanor's public piety. FBI agents conducted a meticulous search. In the church kitchen, they found it, a heavy, metal rolling pin. It had a bent handle, and visible on its surface was a bloodstain. DNA tests soon delivered the chilling confirmation: the blood belonged to 8-year-old Lily Meadow. Investigators also noted that the cord used to tie the recovered suitcase shut was a precise match to one missing from a set of blinds in the Sunday school classroom Eleanor used. The physical links were snapping into place. A search of computers used by Eleanor and her family yielded another disturbing find: a saved news article from the previous year detailing how divers in Israel had found a suitcase containing the body of a missing 4-year-old girl. The physical evidence was mounting, painting a damning picture. Surveillance footage, witness accounts, and forensic findings, the rolling pin, the cord, the suitcase itself, all pointed squarely at Eleanor Vance. The time had come for investigators to confront a Sunday school teacher directly, leading to a confession as bizarre as it was horrifying. The physical evidence was mounting, painting a damning picture. Surveillance footage, witness accounts, and forensic findings, the rolling pin, the cord, the suitcase itself, all pointed squarely at Eleanor Vance. The net had closed. Confrontation was inevitable. On April 10, just days after Lily's body was found, Eleanor Vance, having recently been released from a brief hospital stay for a supposed self-inflicted injury while sleepwalking, voluntarily came to the police station. What began as another interview morphed into a grueling, 6-hour interrogation. Detectives watched as Eleanor's demeanor swung wildly. The initial composure, perhaps tinged with practiced victimhood, began to fray, eventually dissolving into visible, palpable distress under the weight of the evidence laid before her. Finally, she confessed. Sort of. What emerged wasn't a clear admission of brutal murder, but a bizarre, almost childlike story that strained credulity to the breaking point. Eleanor claimed it was all a terrible accident. She said she'd encountered Lily while carrying the now infamous suitcase towards the church. They decided to play hide-and-seek, she explained, and she playfully suggested Lily climb inside the suitcase. Then, according to Eleanor, she zipped it shut completely, got distracted, misplacing her keys and phone, went off to the church, and simply forgot about the little girl locked inside. When she eventually returned and opened the suitcase, she claimed she found Lily lifeless. She even described trying to revive her with a cool towel before panicking and dumping the suitcase in the reservoir. Hide and seek? An accident? The story was patently absurd, a desperate fabrication that utterly failed to account for the autopsy's grim findings: the beating, the drugging with alprazolam/Somnox, the horrific sexual assault with the rolling pin, the deliberate suffocation. Investigators knew this was no game gone wrong. This was damage control, a self-serving narrative spun by someone cornered. They weren't buying it. Eleanor Vance was arrested and transported to the San Joaquin County Jail. Witnesses noted she initially reacted with tears, but then, unsettlingly, seemed to regain her composure. 4 days later, the formal charges hammered home the brutal reality of the crime. Eleanor Vance was charged with the first-degree murder of Lily Meadow, amplified by multiple special circumstances that spoke to the heinous nature of the act: murder committed during the course of a kidnapping, murder involving lewd acts upon a child under 14, referencing the assault with the rolling pin, and murder involving torture. These weren't the actions of someone who merely forgot. The prosecution alleged this was a premeditated, malicious act of horrific violence. The charges carried the ultimate weight: the possibility of the death penalty or, at minimum, life in prison without the chance of parole. News of the arrest and the identity of the accused detonated within Harmony Creek. Shock quickly curdled into disbelief, then into raw, unrestrained fury. Eleanor Vance? The quiet neighbor? Madison's mom? Pastor Law's granddaughter who taught Bible stories to children? Impossible. How could someone living amongst them, someone entrusted with children, be capable of such monstrous cruelty? The sense of betrayal was profound. The outrage manifested in ugly ways. Death threats against Eleanor became so prevalent that authorities implemented strict security measures, fearing vigilantism during her transport and court appearances. Her first appearance for arraignment was a tense spectacle. Dressed in the stark red jumpsuit of the county jail, hands cuffed, Eleanor appeared small and broken. Visible marks, possibly self-inflicted scratches or bruises, marred her forehead. As the judge formally detailed the horrifying charges against her, kidnapping, torture, rape with an object, murder, Eleanor cried and trembled uncontrollably. The air in the courtroom was thick with grief and anger. Lily's devastated family wept openly. Even Eleanor's own relatives, present in the gallery, seemed stunned into silence, their faces etched with disbelief and shame as they heard the graphic reality of the accusations leveled against her. The confession, such as it was, had opened the door to the legal process, but the bizarre, inconsistent story coupled with the brutal evidence left Harmony Creek reeling. The image of the trembling Sunday school teacher in handcuffs, accused of crimes almost too horrific to comprehend, solidified the town's grief into a hard, cold certainty that justice, however painful, must be pursued. The confession, such as it was, had opened the door to the legal process, but the bizarre, inconsistent story coupled with the brutal evidence left Harmony Creek reeling. The image of the trembling Sunday school teacher in handcuffs, accused of crimes almost too horrific to comprehend, solidified the town's grief into a hard, cold certainty that justice, however painful, must be pursued. The legal battle that followed was protracted and complex. Initially, Eleanor Vance pleaded not guilty, clinging perhaps to her improbable accident narrative. Her defense team requested medical evaluations and managed to secure a gag order, temporarily silencing the flow of lurid details to the public and potential jury pool. But the prosecution, led by seasoned prosecutor Tom Testa, or a fictional counterpart, wasn't backing down. In August 2009, they bolstered their case by filing additional charges against Eleanor, accusing her of the earlier druggings involving the 7-year-old girl and her ex-date, Daniel Portman, painting a picture of escalating, predatory behavior. The wheels of justice ground slowly. For almost a year, legal maneuvering continued. Then, on May 10, 2010, facing the undeniable mountain of evidence and the very real threat of a death sentence if convicted at trial, Eleanor Vance, now 29, changed her tune. In a routine pretrial hearing, she accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to first-degree murder with the special circumstance of aggravated kidnapping. In exchange, the prosecution agreed to drop the other horrific charges, the torture, the lewd acts, the prior druggings. It was a calculated exchange, her life spared from execution, in return for accepting responsibility for Lily's murder, albeit under specific legal terms. With the plea entered, the gag order lifted, and Prosecutor Testa was finally able to reveal the prosecution's full, sickening account of Lily's final hours. It bore no resemblance to Eleanor's hide-and-seek fantasy. Testa detailed how Eleanor first drugged Lily with alprazolam/Somnox, then took her to the Harmony Creek Baptist Church. There, in the seeming sanctuary, she sexually assaulted the child with a foreign object, believed to be the heavy rolling pin recovered from the kitchen, stained with Lily's blood. The official cause of death was listed as homicidal asphyxiation. Testa elaborated that Lily was likely suffocated with a piece of cloth soaked in a chemical substance, a blood-stained fragment of which had been found tied around her head. The sentence, delivered shortly after, was predetermined by the plea deal: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, in the eyes of the law, had reached its conclusion. At her sentencing, Eleanor Vance offered a tearful statement. She claimed she still didn't understand why she had committed the crime, that she wrestled with the question daily. She asked Lily's family for forgiveness, admitting she owed them an explanation she couldn't grasp herself. In a final, chilling disconnect from reality, she denied sexually abusing Lily and assured Maria, Lily's mother, that her daughter did not suffer. Her words offered little comfort, especially when contrasted starkly with the undeniable forensic evidence. The pathologist's report detailed Lily's injuries, cuts, abrasions, genital trauma, clear evidence of suffering. Toxicology confirmed the drugging with a substance found in Eleanor's own home and purse. Graphology analysis confirmed Eleanor herself wrote the found note directing searchers. Her courtroom tears couldn't wash away the facts. Though the case was legally closed, the profound mystery of why lingered. Why would a mother, a Sunday school teacher, commit such an atrocious act? Eleanor's documented history of severe mental health issues, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, undoubtedly played a role, contributing to emotional instability, impulsivity, and potentially distorted perceptions. But was it the whole story? Prosecutor Testa speculated that Munchausen by proxy syndrome might have been a factor, a disturbing disorder where individuals harm others, often children, to gain attention and sympathy for themselves. Had Eleanor craved the spotlight, even one cast by such a horrific tragedy? Had her own daughter, Madison, potentially been an unwitting victim of this need, given her history of requiring frequent medical attention? Others theorized simple, ugly jealousy towards the bright, universally loved Lily might have festered in Eleanor's troubled mind. These remain just theories, glimpses into a darkness no one could fully penetrate. The crime itself defied easy categorization, particularly given the statistical rarity of women as perpetrators of such predatory, violent offenses against children. Eleanor Vance was sentenced to spend the rest of her life behind bars, bringing a legal conclusion to the case. Yet, for the family of Lily Meadow and the haunted community of Harmony Creek, the sentence provided little solace against the chilling, unanswered questions about the darkness that drove a neighbor to commit the unthinkable. Eleanor Vance was sentenced to spend the rest of her life behind bars, bringing a legal conclusion to the case. Yet, for the family of Lily Meadow and the haunted community of Harmony Creek, the sentence provided little solace against the chilling, unanswered questions about the darkness that drove a neighbor to commit the unthinkable. The conviction marked an end point in the justice system, but the story itself leaves behind indelible scars and shadows that time may never fully erase. The murder of Lily Meadow wasn't just a crime, it was a fundamental violation of everything Harmony Creek believed itself to be. The image of the peaceful, safe small town, where children played freely and neighbors looked out for one another, was brutally torn down. In its place remained a chilling awareness of vulnerability, a knowledge that evil didn't just exist in faraway cities or dark alleys, but could reside behind a familiar smile, just 5 doors down. The shock wasn't merely the horrific violence inflicted upon Lily, but the identity of the perpetrator, Eleanor Vance, the mother, the Sunday school teacher, the pastor's granddaughter. Someone who should have been a protector, a nurturer, revealed as a predator capable of unimaginable cruelty. Understanding Eleanor remains a complex, perhaps impossible task. The evidence points towards a disturbing confluence of factors. Diagnosed severe mental illnesses like borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder likely fueling emotional instability and impulsive acts. Clear signs of premeditation suggesting calculated thought behind the horror, and a possible element of manipulation woven through her actions and conflicting statements. There was no single, simple explanation. Was it a desperate, twisted cry for attention rooted in Munchausen by proxy syndrome, as the prosecutor speculated? Was it born of jealousy? Or was it simply the catastrophic eruption of a deeply disordered mind? We may never know the true why. What is undeniable is the lasting impact on those left behind. Lily Meadow's family faces a lifetime sentence of grief, robbed of their bright, bubbly daughter in the most horrific way imaginable. The children of Harmony Creek lost a piece of their innocence that day, forced to confront a terrifying reality far too soon. Trust among neighbors, once implicitly given, became fractured, replaced by a lingering unease. Harmony Creek carries the permanent scar as of March 2009, a constant reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within its supposedly safe borders. The unanswered questions surrounding Eleanor Vance's motive only deepen the wound, leaving a void where understanding should be. The case of Lily Meadow stands as a devastating testament to the hidden darkness that can fester beneath the most ordinary surfaces, and the profound, enduring pain left in its wake when that darkness finally breaks free.